I'm not going to tell you where I'm going today, but it's a long way. I've not left home yet, it's only about 20 past 8. There's a long drive ahead. Okay, so that was a long drive down here, wasn't it? Seems like ages we've been on the road for. So I'm now on top of the hill that the tunnel we've come to see burrows underneath, and that weird tit-shaped mound over there is one of the capped shafts. This tunnel has 5 of them altogether. And see that track in the distance there? That is the route of the old railway line as it heads towards the tunnel at its northern end. So we're going right down there and then underneath. Here we go, we're at the very imposing northern portal of Scotland's 4th longest tunnel. You can already feel the presence of the tunnel as the cold air rushes out onto the hot day. We've gone from about 25 degrees down to about 10 degrees already. This is going to be fun, there's a lot to show you inside. Now it's difficult to try and portray much of what's going on here, but if we have a look at the brickwork along this wall, you'll see that most of it is missing its facing, and that is all lying down there on the ground. This is just part of the chaos you'll witness in this tunnel. There we go, you might be able to see light at the end of the tunnel, but that light is about 1,200 yards away. And we've got a refuge to the side there. And again, there's a lot of chaos here. You can hear the dripping sounds. A lot of water comes down here because of the nature of the landscape above us. I can hear some dripping, and what I'm highlighting with the torch is one of the shafts, or what I suspect to be one of the shafts. The patterning on the brickwork there, or stonework at this point mostly, would suggest that that is one of them. But again, you get some really nice colours coming down here. I'll guide you in a wee bit. You can hear the dripping, and that is the northern portal in the distance there. So that gives you a bit of an idea of the lie of the land. Now interestingly, what I'm highlighting there are various shelves of rock that are sticking out of the lining where there has been no lining. And again, one of the many refuges in this tunnel. There's a real atmosphere to this place. And it's very difficult to try and describe just how amazing it is down here. Hopefully, even though I apologise for the slightly grainy quality of this footage, I hope you can appreciate that this is pretty much pitch black in here, and I'm doing the best I can to try and bring out some of the colours and the textures and everything else for you. Now, because of the water ingress in here, you'll see there's a lot of these lovely looking calcite patterns trailing down the side of the tunnel. And again, you can hear all that water pouring in from the land above, which as you saw is quite boggy. Now, the tunnel itself has a complex drainage system. This is the only open catch pit within the tunnel. And it's worth showing you this, because the tunnel itself takes in 400 gallons of water per minute. And despite that, the tunnel floor is surprisingly quite dry because of how well the drainage system in here still operates. There are many refuges in this tunnel, and they're all slightly different heights, slightly different shapes, because it's very haphazard, and they're also not very deep in. Some of these refuges go quite far to the back, but because the lining is so thin in this tunnel, there's really not that much space in here. Now, the refuges are where people would stand in when the trains passed through if they were in here doing maintenance or something along those lines. In this tunnel, they're very haphazard. They're quite well spaced, quite frequent, but they are quite peculiar, and there's usually a lot of slightly loose brickwork and that kind of thing in them. But I thought I'd show you one of these as I was passing. And this is what happens. It does. These lines here were painted on so that if you were working in the tunnel, walking through with a torch, you were able to see where the refuges were, so you'd be able to hide from the oncoming train as it passed through. Perhaps not in the main waterfall, but that just gives you an idea of just how much water does come through at various points in here. It's almost like the tunnel itself is taking a piss. This is shaft 3. Now a lot of water is pouring down here because these shafts form a natural sump in the ground where the water naturally flows into, and it drops straight into the tunnel. And it comes pouring down onto the bottom. And like I say, because the drainage system in here is so good, this water is carried away and into the under-track system below. I'm guessing this level of water coming in made this tunnel an absolute nightmare to build, but it makes it one of the most interesting ones in Scotland. Now, this is one of 2 vehicles. I believe this one is a beetle. You'll correct me on that if I'm wrong, Richard. Yeah. And it sits, I believe the story behind this is somebody from the local town stole this car. It might be the other one. There's 2 of them down here. They drove it so far in, and then, as people do, they just set it on fire. So they would have had to come a fair distance from the local town, because the local town is still about 15 miles away from this tunnel. But again, see a lot of coloration to the brick at this point. There's a lot of yellows down here, which always surprises me. This is more stonework once you get to this point, and it's only really about one course of stone thick, maybe about 2 bricks in at this point, which gives you an idea of how flimsy the lining is, which explains why there's so much of it has come off. Now you can see these pipes coming down here. These are all meant to catch all the water that you can see dripping on the camera here, and that was meant to take them down below the tunnel and into the drainage system below. And if I zoom in and up, that is one of the many large metal catch points which would have collected where the most significant dripping points were and carried it through the pipe, which unfortunately now comes to an abrupt end because it's rusted away, and then down below. This is in the southern third where it is considerably drippier and more unpleasant. Now this is the infamous shaft 2. Now I said that 400 gallons of water per minute come into this tunnel at any given time, and the vast majority of it, about 200 gallons of it, coming from this very shaft. And as you can see, there's a lot of drips around me anyway. The big waterfall towering in from there. You can see all these bits here are part of the old tray system, which used to carry the water down around the side and drop it into the drainage system below. Unfortunately, most of that has now collapsed over time, but it's just a phenomenal display of water that comes pouring in here every second, and this never stops. And this has been going on the last 150 years. I think the tunnel opened in 1864, so that gives you an idea of just how long that water has been flowing in here. And this is sort of the final disastrous third of the tunnel where all the water ingress and all the problems are that make this tunnel as scary but rewarding as it is. And again, you can hear a lot of water, and look at this, the coloration here. You can just about see the water shaft 2 in the distance. Now this part is running under very, very boggy ground, which explains why there's so much water pouring in at this point. If I turn the camera around, you'll see all the colours as the water pours down. And there we have it. Shaft 1 is just there. And you can see more of the apparatus used to try and drain the water properly from the tunnel. Now this is the other car in the tunnel, which I believe is a Ford Cortina Mark III. And this is probably the one that was stolen from the nearby town and driven in and then burnt within the tunnel. But you can just hear the chaos in here. There is another one of the refuge, a bit taller than the one I gave you an example of earlier. And again, looking down there, that is the northern portal, which is now about nearly 2/3 of a mile away from us. We are at the southern end of the tunnel. This is where all the disastrous stuff is, and you can see special ribs have been installed. I believe there's 12 of them, all specially shaped to fit into this tunnel shape. You can see the distortion in the way that the ribs come around like that. And just in the distance you can just about pick out the light, which is 2/3 of a mile away at the northern portal of the tunnel. And the reason those big metal grills were there, if I spin round, lower the tripod there for you, you can see there has been a massive collapse. This happened in March of 2002, and you can see up there the space that it all came from. So this is as far as we're going to go. The southern portal is right behind us, so there's no need to continue beyond this point. This is basically, you don't want to go over this. This is where the journey ends. So what can you say about a tunnel like this? 1,280 yards in length, and it climbs at a steady 1 in 96, with the summit of the railway being at the other side of the tunnel. Now it definitely is the best tunnel in Scotland, and it's actually an engineering marvel, believe it or not. Despite the poor condition it's in now, the contract was given to William Ritson, and he did an amazing job in making sure this thing got built properly, because he had to deal with a lot of challenging conditions, constant water ingress, changes between heat conditions. 1 minute they would be freezing cold, the next minute roasting hot, and there was just so much that went on in here to get this tunnel as it is just now, and it's a real shame that it's been left to abandonment the way it has been. But this definitely gets a thumbs up because it is the best tunnel in Scotland.